Hello, my name is METİN. This is 118th part of explanation of my theory. According to my theory and my formulas, 0-point energy is maximum energy for the universe. Imagine, all stars instantly turned off the light. Now, everywhere in dark and cold. Not even the faintest bit of cold embers light in the universe. Last remaining free electron motion form is bound with a proton in an atom. From now on, it won't be able to produce and propagate successive waves. From now on, it is a proton-bound electron motion form. From now on, it is not free. So, there will be no heat, there will be no temperature, no light, no gravity, no gravitation, no thermal radiation anymore, and no life. Now, proton-bound electron motion forms in all atoms, in whole universes, in dark, are at their single first cycle, spherical, ring-shaped, intrinsic motions. Remember, electron motion forms are intrinsic, eternal motion forms of meta-sensation perception matter. Yes. Yes. When free electron motion forms, when they connected with a proton, they have been forced to change their wavelengths. In an atom, all free electron motion forms forced to do this, because there is only one different wavelength size proton-bound electron motion form for each proton in a multi-electron atom. Each proton-bound electron motion form has its own initial, in balance, undisturbed situation, point energy and point mass, and each proton-bound electron motion form goes on cycling at its first cycle at its certain peculiar wavelength at 1,884,000 km per second linear speed perpetually without producing and propagating successive waves in an atom. Confined in an atom, free electron motion forms. We have not to lose them. We have not to lose the stars. Yes, in these conditions, point energy of each proton-bound electron motion form represents maximum energy at any point of it. For instance, in a hydrogen atom, 91.155. At rest, here, a proton-bound electron motion form. Okay, now imagine here starless universe, and there is an atom with connected 91.155 nanometer wavelength size electron motion form. At its first cycle, it cannot produce and propagate successive waves. It cannot affect any proton-bound electron motion forms. There is no light, there is no temperature, there is no gravitation, there is no life, but there is eternal motion within or with matter. Which matter? That we can never see. Meta, sensation, perception, matter. Each proton-bound electron motion form has its own initial in-balance, undisturbed situation point energy and point mass, and each proton-bound electron motion form goes on cycling at its first cycle at its certain peculiar wavelength at 1,884,000 km per second linear speed perpetually, without producing and propagating successive waves, without producing light in an atom. In these conditions, point energy of each proton-bound electron motion form represents maximum energy at any point of it. For instance, in a hydrogen atom, undisturbed proton-bound electron motion form at 91.155 nanometer has 136.10 to the minus 19 kilogram meter square per second square, or joules, point energy in linear velocity direction of this electron motion form. This value represents maximum energy of proton-bound electron motion form in a hydrogen. For helium's smallest proton-bound electron motion form at 22.8 nanometer that I have computed, point energy is 547.522 10 to the minus 19 joules. This is maximum point energy value of 22.8 nanometer proton-bound electron motion form, smallest electron motion form that bound to a proton in helium atom. Now, this means proton-bound electron motion forms and all atoms will be at their maximum point energy at their any point at absolute zero temperature in this starless, dark and cold universe. By the way, according to me, when a proton-bound electron motion form push out a single wave pulse as a spectral limelight under the influence of effective successive waves of free electron motion forms, once upon a time, not now, energy value of this spectral line can never be equal to or can never exceed this proton-bound electron motion form's initial wavelength in balance point energy value. This means, so important, if we take an instantaneous total energy photograph, the whole universe illuminated by stars, and if we compare the total energies of bright universe and starless dark cold universe, I deduced that the total energy of starless dark universe has much more energy than the universe illuminated with stars. This means starless dark universe at absolute zero temperature has maximum energy. Now I ask, in accepted physics theories, the opposite is described. This sentence I'm going to read to you. Source is Wikipedia, 0 point energy. What they say, source is Wikipedia, 0 point energy. 0 point energy is the lowest. 0 point energy is the lowest possible energy that a quantum mechanical system may have. These sentences, source is Wikipedia, subject is 0 point energy. Yes, have a good afternoon. See you later.